Hello. Hello, hello. I'm going to start off with my writing process that I learned. I don't have to have a writing perfect example. We are not experts when writing a research paper. The challenge is that I overcome it was when asking my professor Bonnie and classmates to see what I was going through. And I got after trying writing my research paper before I would get in my feedback in high school, and I didn't go so well. The morning, the main engagement was fixing my problem that I requested, converting into a different statement. I changed my research paper, primary research, and I ended up with using a explain them. My second thing that I changed was my conclusion to make it much better and more challenging. And that was a challenge. So for my primary research, I changed by adding some quotes and explaining them because that's what I used when I did my primary research. I also did and I changed on my conclusion part, which is here at the bottom. I just explained what I had in mind, and I just made it, and I had whatever I had in mind, I just put it in words, and that's what I wrote. The impact was that I came through this challenge because I didn't have an effective primary research and a concluding paragraph. I had a hard time with this part. And let's move on straight to the point, making it easier for the reader to know what I'm going to be talking, who I'm going to be talking to or speaking to. The challenge was knowing where to start off with the writing was to keep it. It was simple, just like my professor always told me in class. By making it simple, just list some key points and determine what the audience, so the reader can know, is being directed to what I'm trying to say to my research question. And my research question was how optometrists determine myopia, pink eye, glaucoma, and color blindness. My audience was intended to 6 to 9 years old and little children, and I was going to keep it straight and forward, which I did. I talked about a lot of it in here. The impact was that I found by doing this it took me some time, but now I know how to do this because to be straight and precise to the point. Now I don't have to be rumbling around. Now I can see what I can take and as much as time. But remember, start and look at and put some points. That's all you have to do. That's what I did. Next thing, I did some worksheets, the critique worksheet, and it's just basically sum it all in class. That's what I did, and I analyzed it in order to find the right information. So the challenge was finding the correct information. Having to do the research was kind of hard because I didn't know all these worksheets that existed because in high school I never did them. So the first critique was that the critique one. So it asked some of the few important information like the secondary sources, how many, or the major claims, or the major gaps, like what is it in common, the similar, the pros and cons. What was one of the learning things that I did, So I went to the library. I asked my librarian, so what I'm looking for books that determine optometrists and how do they learn and diagnose or identify disorders. And he told me, okay, so you're gonna look here in the online. So I went online, and that's what I did. And the document analysis, that's what I decided to do as to answer my question of my research. So that's what I did. And the other sheet I used was the design and test. The design and test is just asking for gaps and like what is a major and things like that. The big question that I did, the participants, like I said, optometrists 6 through 9 years old, little kids. What is the confidant of your documents? What was information that I did? What did I provide? What was some of the things that I did for my analysis? I collected some data, like I did some quotes, and I decided just to quote inside and include them in this worksheet because I knew I was going to use them later on when I started to do my research paper, in which I did. It came more easier. It was papitas, and that's what I wanted to do. So this is what I did in this particular worksheet, in the design and critique worksheet. So this is what I tested. Is I basically summarized everything what I did in the critique and research and the design one. So this worksheet just breaks you down into sections and gets into more detail. And now to continue on, I also did a map. Not a real map, but I just I stated my quotes and I explained them just so I can make it easier and for myself whenever I start my research paper. So I have them here. I have 3 here, and then I have my other 2 over here, and then I explained everything and the similarities and the pros and cons and what I'm gonna use it for in the real life, and that's what I explained, and pretty much that's what it was. And then the impact that I had for these 3 worksheets was that I never did this when I was in high school, so it was much different when I started to do in college. Doing this research paper, it is nothing compared to what I did in high school, because you go much in depth, you put more detail, but it's well organized, and it's gonna help you to make it easier in your research paper. In the future, I will be using this in my writing because I will get to, whenever I get accepted to the University of Houston for the College of Optometry, because I want to do this as my career as an optometrist, I'll be using this tool to make it easier for my research papers and things that I need to get done. The second thing that I learned was my research process. What I learned is what they need to be credible. The sources need to be credible. And what I mean about that, they have to be credible. So what I used was a crap sheet that my professor taught us. So I went to, in this section, I'm going to talk about the credibility. So the crap sheet stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose. I use this, in this case, I use authority because I need to see if my credible source is credible. So I'm going to talk about this section only because that's what I need to talk about. So it's just ask you simple questions like, what is the author? Is it credible? What are their credentials? Is it qualified? Is there any contact information? Is there anywhere we can get located? Is there any other etc. information to contact these specific authors and stuff like that? So that's what I did in this section. The impact was trying to find the right source so I can do it in the correct research question, the one that I did. But it didn't. But it's possible to find credible sources in this database, which the database I used was JSTOR. JSTOR is one of the best ones out there. Since I started finding my research papers since I started my freshman year, it has been #1 research database. Why lie? This is one of the best ones. Finding secondary sources is what it has to be it doesn't have to be well explained because the research, the secondary sources are there just to back you up, so they don't have to actually answer your question or anything like that. So you just the example was you just get some facts and things to answer your topic. You don't have to use the whole entirely source to do this. The challenge was it was hard to me to look for the starting quotes that I wanted to use for my research question because secondary sources are just to back you up, like I said, not to do everything, not to do your whole entirely job. That is not the case. So the quote that I used was in the introduction paragraph. It states like, myopia is the most common refractive error in leading cause of blindness. Myopia is currently in the use of the people in the United States and Western Europe, and it has prevalence higher than 70% in rural areas in the Asian countries. That is just increasing. That's crazily insane. But that's what I used, and it made it more effectively when I stated this question with this quote, and then I explained it, and then I cited the quote from this a source that is called Education Influence Roads in Myopia. The impact was that I was never told in how to get to my college until I was told in college so I can do this secondary sources, like explain them and do these crap sheets and just answer. They don't have to actually answer your question. They're just there to back you up. You have to do more research. That's what we do their primary and then the secondary. It's just a matter of doing that. Moving on. Always explain primary research and secondary research. So let me go back to my research. And this is my primary research, which I did the document analysis. I went to the library, asked for my librarian if he can help me in the second floor, and he told me, okay, go online, search for what you need to do. We have a lot of online books, and just go from there. So that's what I did. I stated quotes that I use from these books. One of them is called Common Eye Diseases Management, page 204. That's what I used, and the other one was Common Diseases and Conjunctiva in the Cornea, page 45. Those were the two books that I used for this primary research and secondary research paper, for my research and for understanding my research paper. The challenge was that trying to put my primary research was a little hard because we have to first analyze the data with the research paper. The analyze worksheet data is my data that I collected. The analyze, which is this one here, the analyze method that I decided to use basically is what this worksheet is asking documents that I collected and things like that. The organization that I did, what did I decide to do, what information I did got, what did I do, what was my results, the pros and cons, what did I mean about what I did, and I just explained the quotes, and I stated my research question again. How optometrists research disorders in myopia, pink eye, and color blindness in myopia. So basically that's what I did, and whatever I thought it meant and things like that. And it was hard, but because this is fairly new, but now I know how to do it. When it comes to my impact, it was in high school. I never used this, and this taught me a lot to put in my primary and secondary research, because in my paper now I know how to do this interesting thing, because now I know how to do my primary and secondary research in my research paper. So let's continue on. For my feature in this part of the section is that I will be using this more effectively because I chose for my research topic and my secondary research to plan my primary research, and I decided to make it more efficiently when I move on to my education to optometry. In order to do this more in my research paper or anything, I will be more intellected in the medical field, because and the medical field is more competitive. And now I need to know how to do this very efficiently and very effectively because I need to know. Simply, I just need to know. So moving on. With my secondary sources, this was one of my sources that I decided to use for my research paper, and it was very effectively, like I said. And they have to be. I decided to choose the JSTOR database because it's one of the best ones that I got recommended by a student in the university, and he said, "Oh, yeah, it's really good and does everything for you." So that's why I decided to use my JSTOR for my research paper. And in my research paper, I quoted everything and I cited everything at the very end. That's where you put your works cited page. I used 4, so I had to put them in alphabetical order from their last name, first name, and everything else, like the same thing that is always known for. So this section wasn't really that hard because I already knew how to do it, but it's already familiar. I'm already familiar with this as things. And the impact was that I decided I was able to use this database and I was able to know and determine the secondary sources to which I was able to. Before I didn't want to know if they were good or not. And then the crap sheet. I'm going to explain the crap sheet from the beginning. Because this sheet provides you and organizes you the secondary sources and the letter of each the acronym tells you what it is. So let's start off with currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. And in this case, we will be explaining the whole sheet, so I can know how to use it now and further on in my career. So currency is just how current is your secondary source or anything like that. Is it how old is it? Does it have any functional things? It shouldn't have anything that it shouldn't be because it should be from a database. And then relevance, how relevant if it relevance from your project, from your research, it has to be relevant. The authority has to be authorized from certified authors, from doctorates and PhD, MDs, or stuff like that. They have to be qualified, and they also kind of see if you can find any contact information, so you can email them or try or anything like that, or any online stuff like. It shouldn't have any online stuff because it has to be professional site, and any other stuff, but it has to be, like I said, from relevant from your source. And for my source, the accuracy is if it's actually true or not. It has to be true because it's from the JSTOR, so I mean it has to be true. The purpose, it has to know, is it there to inform you, or it has pretty much has to be more informative because that's what you're doing pretty much most of the time. And for this last thing, the last box here for the rhetorical notes is just to keep you in mind to put some key points, your quotes that you want to use for your research paper, and you can explain it. So whenever you start your research paper, you just put it in there and you're free to go. You don't have to worry about finding codes anywhere else. You just come here to your caption and upload it. And the challenge was not very, I wasn't very used to this method, so it was fairly a little hard because in high school we never did this, but in college now we have to analyze our secondary sources before anything else in our research paper, because you have to analyze this with the crap sheet before anything else. You can't just stick it in there and your preview and it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna fly. And my impact was, now that I know how to use this method, I can start my graduate school whenever I start it. For my future career as an optometrist, crap sheets are going to be more efficiently, and they're going to be much better to use as my secondary sources. And almost to the last thing, need to give the credit to the author. So like I said, you have to give credit to the author because you don't want to plagiarize with these things because uh, you're gonna be caught in trouble and stuff like that. So you need to cite it correctly. So like in JSTOR is very fairly easy. You just click on the citation and it's gonna give you options like MLA, APA, Chicago. So in my case was MLA. I just did it in MLA, copy pasted. I put it in my research paper here at the bottom with the works cited page from last name, first name, and here it goes. You just put it from that, and that was it. I used 4 sources, and that's how I did it from my source, from my JSTOR. And there wasn't really a challenge because I already knew how to do it because colleagues told me how to do it, and they recommended this this database, and it was really good. The impact was that I used it JSTOR because it made it much easier to manage the JSTOR and had a citation generated to just to collect MLA format, which I used, and I cited that very promptly. This was something new but very easy to do because I never knew about this JSTOR database since I started my freshman year in college, but it was actually worth it because it has everything here and you don't have to worry about anything. It had a citer, stuff like that. In the future, I will be using the citing generator because I won't get for whenever I get into grad school because I will be needing this a lot to do essays, and I will be using a lot of JSTOR in my database since now I know how to use it, and I will be that's a huge plus because this database is one of the best ones here. It outsides for you and it makes your life easier. You don't have to stress about it, and that's about it.